I think what we see and have seen recently is a growing trend and an increase in the amount of office to residential conversions that are taking place using the government's permitted development rights policy. And I think this is becoming an issue in many ways because of the sorts of buildings in particular that we're seeing converted. Major buildings on the one hand, in the context, for example, as Barclays Mercantile, or the Weller Building, or Dexter Court, as well as smaller employment spaces that are being sought for conversion, such as the Woodlands Business Village. And in losing those employment spaces, it creates an issue of the balance that we have within our economy between the loss of employment space and employment opportunity on the one hand, and the need and the development of housing and homes on the other. And there is an important balance to strike because of the issue that we do see in the borough of employment space and the way that it is managed for many businesses that would seek to grow or move through those opportunities, all for the fact that we have such a major site, a major location as the Barclays Mercantile Building being developed in the way that it is, right in the middle of the town. I think the issue that we see being created by some of these developments is what is it that's actually being created. And I want to talk about a home, and I want to talk about people who live in homes and what they would be living in the context of some of these developments. In many cases, what we're seeing is units that are being developed, homes that are being developed, that are maybe 29 square metres. We saw that recently in a proposal coming forward from a developer that we've had engagement with. 30 square metres. Now, what does that actually mean? Now, looking at it, that is roughly 2.5 car parking spaces. Is a unit a microflat in a way that perhaps we haven't seen in the context of our borough. Many other places may do, but in the context of Basingstoke and Deane, it's very important because of the nature of these developments and the volume of them that are coming forward. What about the standards and the quality that we see in these, the conversion of these buildings in the way they're being converted to actually be suitable and acceptable for residential and homes that we're talking about? What are they actually going to be like to live in? And are we happy with those standards and the qualities that we're seeing come forward? And it's incredibly important that we have that conversation, the livability of what we're seeing created. We actually have policy in our local plan that governs the size of gardens. We had a big debate about that. We had a strong debate about that. We don't have a policy that governs the size of flats. We don't have a policy that governs the habitable area. What we do have is a policy that governs the size of gardens. And that is an anomaly we may wish to revisit in the future. But it is a point when we see these developments coming forward and the context then in which we set a home for somebody to live in. The prices that some of these are going at, the issue of actually, are they affordable? Are they really in the reach of people in our town, in our borough? I think we need to understand what it is that we're actually talking about, and therefore the audit is important to establish the baseline. What are we seeing? Why are we seeing it? What are the issues involved here? Where should we as a local authority be placing our attention, particularly because a lot of this is both outside of our local development framework, but within our rules and regulations of influencing those planning applications and those decisions that we see coming forward. There is a role for the borough, but it is outside of the local development framework. And that's an important area to examine and look at, and the levers and the opportunities we may have to affect standards and quality that we see coming forward. It's also just trying to be human about this. You know, we can talk about units and volumes and numbers and square metres, but it's just actually the point. What do the sort of homes do we really want? And do we want people to be living in a square box of 2.5 car parking spaces? And what are the consequences of that to see the volume that we're talking about come forward? Where does our housing strategy fit into this? Where do our policy framework fit into this? I think it's worthy of examination and it's worthy of having a look.